Ministerial Statement, Minister for Defence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In February this year, I made a ministerial statement on the death of Corporal First Class NS Aloysius Pang, which had occurred on 23rd January. Therein, I gave as much detail as was known then about the incident, without prejudicing the due process as prescribed by the SAF Act for an independent committee of inquiry to investigate thoroughly the factors leading to the death. The COI has completed its investigations, and in this statement, I will present the findings of the COI as submitted to the Armed Forces Council. The COI comprised 5 persons, none of whom are employed by the Ministry of Defence or the Singapore Armed Forces. They were a judge nominated by the State's Court as chairman, a consultant medical specialist, a member nominated by the External Review Panel on SAF Safety, a member drawn from the Workplace Safety and Health Council, and a senior-ranked national serviceman. I remind MPs that COIs are convened under the SAF Act, empowering it to fact-find. The COI has no mandate to determine the culpability of individuals. Indeed, Section 8C of the SAF Act specifies that no statements made to the COI shall be admissible as evidence in the court-martial or for any subsequent disciplinary proceedings that may take place. To keep within this remit, I will not provide specific names of other individuals involved in the incident in my statement, apart from Corporal Pang. Prosecution of any persons will be conducted separately, which I will elaborate later. Let me first take MPs through the COI's findings. I intend to quote from their report predominantly, and the dates and times stated in their report are in New Zealand local time. Quote, on 5th January 2019, Corporal N.S. Pang left Singapore for exercise Thunder Warrior at Waiouru Military Training Area, New Zealand, as part of his 7th in-camp training and the unit's 8th in-camp training. Exercise Thunder Warrior is a live firing exercise. On 19 January 2019, at about 1900 hours, Corporal Pang sustained an injury while carrying out maintenance work on a Singapore self-propelled howitzer, SSPH, involved in Exercise Thunder Warrior. Corporal Pang was assisting in maintenance work in the SSPH when the gun barrel was lowered, and he was caught between the flick rammer and the slew ring of the SSPH turret. I draw members' attention to the slide which I made in a ministerial statement in February, and if you look at the picture on the top left-hand corner, the flick rammer is in the middle of the picture, the slew ring above it, and when the gun is lowered and the flick rammer goes up, he was caught between the flick rammer and the slew ring. Corporal Pang was attended by the battery medic on site and evacuated to the battalion casualty station at 19:10 hours. He was assessed and stabilized at the BCS before being evacuated to Waiouru Base Medical Center at 19:50 hours. At 21:50 hours, Corporal Pang was heli-evacuated to Waikato Hospital, where he was operated on at around 0100 hours. Corporal Pang underwent 2 more surgeries on the 21st and 22nd of January before his condition deteriorated. On 24th January, Corporal Pang succumbed to his injuries. Corporal Pang died from severe sepsis arising from his severe chest and abdominal injuries as a result of being trapped between the flick rammer and the slew ring in the SSPH, unquote. The COI next established a detailed chronology of events leading to the injury and subsequent death of Corporal Pang. To recap from my statement in February, the configuration, the safe positions, and location of key features within the SSPH gun accompany the summary of events which we will distribute now, with your permission, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, please.
Let me take members through the events. On 19 January, Corporal Pang had responded to the call from the gun detachment commander. The gun detachment commander was a 3rd Sergeant NS Men, for assistance to conduct corrective maintenance on his SSPH gun. The bearing of the gun was beyond the allowable error and needed to be rectified to resume live firing. Corporal Pang was an armament technician from the forward maintenance platoon designated to perform such work. But as Corporal Pang could not resolve the issue, a regular military expert tool technician was dispatched to join him to perform the maintenance work on the gun. I draw members' attention that there were only 3 persons in the gun when the injury occurred: Corporal N.S. Pang, the 3rd Sergeant Gun Commander, which I will now subsequently refer to as GC, the Gun Commander, and the regular ME2 technician, whom I will refer to as ME Tech. The GC, the Gun Commander, explained the fault to the ME Tech. To rectify the fault, the plan was to change the central processing unit card on the motor drive control unit and ammo handling system box. The box was located near safe position 3. If you remember the previous slide that was shown, the flick rammer is on the bottom left-hand corner, and the box is, as indicated, near safe position 3. The ME Tech briefed the gun commander to turn off the AHS, to lock the gun barrel, turn off the engine, and turn off the master switch. To lock the gun barrel required it to be first lowered to the near horizontal standby position. The ME Tech then proceeded to stand at the designated safe position 3 and started to loosen the screws in the AHS box to carry out maintenance work. The ME Tech also saw Corporal Pang removing the screws on the right-hand side of the box. Corporal Pang was not in the designated safe position, and his back was to the barrel of the gun. Based on the COI's findings, the ME Tech informed Corporal Pang in a mix of Mandarin and English that the gun barrel was going to be moved to the standby position, and told Corporal Pang to move either closer to him or to a safe position. Corporal Pang replied in Mandarin that it was fine and that the gun barrel would not hit him. Before he moved the gun barrel to a standby position, the gun commander said he checked if the path was clear and did see Corporal Pang standing near the gun barrel. As the gun barrel was in the highest elevated position, the gun commander wrongly assumed that Corporal Pang would have time to move away, given that it would take some time for the barrel to move into the standby position. The gun commander proceeded to shout, quote, "Stand by, clear away," unquote, before activating the control to move the gun. This was heard by the ME Tech as well as personnel who were standing outside the gun. As the flick rammer was moving up, Corporal Pang was still removing the screws on the box and looking back at the barrel at the same time. He initially made no attempt to move away. The gun commander noticed that Corporal Pang was making some evasive movements as the barrel was moving closer to him. The ME Tech was shocked to see Corporal Pang still in the path of the gun and tried to use his hands to push against the barrel to stop the movement. As the gun barrel made contact with Corporal Pang, the COI opined that instead of activating the emergency stop buttons, both the ME Tech and the gun commander panicked and acted irrationally. The ME Tech tried to push the gun barrel with his hands, while the gun commander went to the main control screen to try to stop the barrel movement. As a result, Corporal Pang was wedged between the flick rammer and the slew ring. These were the detailed events as determined by the COI that led to the serious injuries and untimely death of Corporal Pang. The COI opined that, quote, the precipitating cause of the incident was due to the lowering of the gun barrel without ensuring that everyone was in their safe positions. A, Corporal Pang was standing in the path of the moving barrel and not in a safe position prior to the gun barrel being moved. B, Corporal Pang did not move to a safe position despite receiving warning that the gun barrel was going to be moved to a standby position. C, the ME Tech did not ensure that Corporal Pang moved to a safe position despite knowing that the gun barrel would be moved. D, the gun commander proceeded to move the gun barrel despite noticing that Corporal Pang was not in a safe position. E, both the gun commander and the ME Tech failed to press the E stop buttons to halt the movement of the gun barrel, unquote. The COI determined there was non-compliance with the standard operating procedures and safety breaches. Quote, these breaches have contributed to the cause of the incident and are preventable. A, non-enforcement of the safe positions in the SSPH. The gun detachment commander, ME Tech, and Corporal Pang did not follow the strict requirement that everyone must be in a safe position during the movement of the gun barrel. Safe positions 1, 2, and 3 in your handout. The ME Tech was standing slightly away from the ammo loader's position, which is safe position 3, and Corporal Pang was standing in the path of the gun barrel. Although the gun commander had shouted, stand by, clear away, and the ME Tech had told Corporal Pang to move closer to him or to move away from the path of the gun barrel, both the gun commander and the ME Tech did not ensure that Corporal Pang was at a safe position before the gun barrel was lowered. The gun commander also did not adhere strictly to the SOP for lowering the gun barrel. Although the GC had shouted, stand by, clear away, before lowering the gun barrel, he should have waited for Corporal Pang to be in a safe position before moving the gun barrel to the standby position, but this was not adhered to. This requirement is provided in the SSPH Operator's Manual, that no person should be in the travel path of the barrel or the rammer tray. The GC and ME Tech also did not activate the E-stop buttons when the barrel was being lowered. B, non-compliance of the maintenance manual for the SSPH technicians. It is clearly stated in the maintenance manual for SSPH technicians to ensure that before they embark on the maintenance work to replace the interface card in the AHS, in this case, that the gun must be in a parked position with the gun barrel locked. On the day of the incident, the ME Tech did not ensure that the gun barrel was in a locked position before replacing the interface card. Instead, the ME Tech has started to dismantle the mountings on the gun, even though the gun barrel was not in a standby or locked position, unquote. The COI opined that a combination of following factors contributed to the cause of the incident. I quote, A, lack of coordinated safety control procedure between the gun crew and the maintenance crew during maintenance work on the SSPH. There was a lack of clarity on who should be in the gun, the command and control, and whether there was a need for acknowledgement before the gun barrel is moved. It is the COI's opinion that the gun commander should take command and control to supervise and execute all preventive maintenance and corrective maintenance tasks, as well as ensure safety in the gun, as stated in the SSPH Operator Manual. However, this does not absolve the person activating the gun barrel movement of its responsibility to ensure that everyone is in a safe position before moving the gun barrel. B, commencing maintenance work before the gun barrel was in a locked position. The ME Tech had commenced removing the mountings on the AHS box even before the gun barrel was in a locked position to get on with the job quickly. C, misjudgment of time and space by personnel in the SSPH. Both the ME Tech and the GC had miscalculated the time it took for the flick rammer to hit Corporal Pang. The emergency stop buttons were not activated to stop the movement of the gun barrel. In their state of panic, when the flick rammer hit Corporal Pang, both the ME Tech and the GC acted irrationally instead of activating the E-stop buttons. Unquote. The COI found no evidence indicating that Corporal Pang's death involved foul play or was caused by any deliberate acts. However, the COI found, and I quote, that the incident was due to the lapses of all the servicemen who were in the gun at the time of the incident: the gun commander, ME Tech, and Corporal Pang. Let me repeat this because this is the final conclusion of the COI. The COI found that the incident was due to the lapses of all the servicemen who were in the gun at the time of the incident: the gun commander, the military expert technician, and Corporal Pang. The COI also commented on factors related to but non-contributory to the incident or outcome. Before Exercise Thunder Warrior, the SSPH guns were certified fit for firing in Singapore by the technicians. The guns were certified fit for firing again in New Zealand before the live firing exercise. It has been established that there was no mechanical fault with the gun that had directly caused the accident. The incident in this case was not due to the serviceability of the SSPH. On the post-incident medical care, the COI is of the opinion that in view of the extenuating circumstances caused by the distance and availability of the helicopter, the medical care provided was adequate but can be improved. However, the COI is also of the opinion that this did not cause or contribute to the demise of Corporal Pang. Members of this House have presented the COI findings. It is sad but undeniable that the direct causes determined by the COI that resulted in the death of Corporal Pang were preventable had there been compliance to safety rules. It was not for lack of knowledge of these rules or inexperience of personnel working on the SSPH gun. The COI determined that prior to the incident, all the three personnel in the gun, Corporal Pang, the gun commander, the ME Tech, had received adequate training to be aware that whenever the gun barrel is moved, they must be in a safe position. It was clear to the ME Tech that Corporal Pang was not in a safe position. Notwithstanding this, the ME Tech merely told Corporal Pang to move closer to him or move away, instead of stopping the gun movement. When Corporal Pang replied that the gun barrel would not hit him and did not move away from where he was, the ME Tech could have ensured that Corporal Pang moved away to a safe position or press the E-stop button. The gun commander shouted, "Stand by, clear away," before he commenced lowering the gun barrel. At the same time, he saw that Corporal Pang was not standing in the designated safe position. Instead of ensuring that Corporal Pang was in a safe position before lowering the gun barrel, he thought that there was sufficient time for Corporal Pang to move away as the gun barrel was lowered. If the gun commander had ensured that Corporal Pang was in a safe position before activating the gun barrel to standby position, the incident would not have happened. From the accounts of Corporal Pang peers to the COI, Corporal Pang had a positive work attitude and was very helpful to others when he came to work. He was also very professional when executing his task. Corporal Pang started his full-time national service in October 2008. He had attended several courses and training during his full-time national service, graduating with an overall A grade from the Armament Basic Technician Training. He had also attended the maintenance vocational training on his 6th ICT in February of 2018 in preparation for Exercise Thunder Warrior. He was also professional when executing his task and was seen by his superiors as someone who would not cut safety corners when working. Unquote. Nevertheless, the COI found that the incident was due to lapses of all the servicemen who were in the gun at the time of the incident. The COI proposed the following recommendations aimed at preventing similar incidents in the future and enhancing the safety system, which I report in full. Quote, A. Enhance safety culture by ensuring that all servicemen of the SAF, and especially NSmen, take personal ownership of safety. The Army safety culture should be enhanced, and special emphasis should also be placed on the safety culture of the NSmen, who must be equally cognizant of all safety regulations and procedures. The SAF could involve SAF NS commanders in the review of training safety regulations, as this will instill greater ownership by NSmen in terms of safety. A more comprehensive risk assessment for high-risk activities should be conducted, and all near misses must be reported and archived. B. Review standing operating procedures in emergency drills. The SAF should review all SOPs and drills to ensure that there are proper procedures in mixed crew operations. SOP for maintenance work involving gun crew and maintenance crew should be established, including handover procedures. Emergency drills or SOPs should be developed to educate operators on the application of e-stop buttons during gun barrel movements. C. Ensure compliance to TSR, SOPs, and operator manuals. All systems should be operated in a manner required by the design, and a new risk assessment should be conducted if any part of the system is to be used differently. There is also a need to ensure that the SOPs relating to the operations of the gun are complied with, and operations should be halted whenever the SOPs are not complied with. Similarly, there must be strict enforcement that the equipment conditions as mandated in the maintenance manual is adhered to before the commencement of maintenance work. D. Enhance existing training safety support, especially for maintenance-related work. A safety checklist briefing before the start of any maintenance works could be introduced, with emphasis on the number of maintenance crew needed to work inside the gun. There should be a continued education on compliance with the TSR, and this should be incorporated into quarterly Army safety seminars. There could also be a safety officer appointed during peacetime live firing exercises to oversee safety and further develop the safety management plan with regard to maintenance work and the maintenance crew's interaction with the gun crew. E. Enhanced training of medical officers for aeromedical evacuation and pre-hospital care. Given the extended distances to definitive care, one of the principal considerations in the medical support plan, the use for helicopters for casualty evacuation to a higher echelon care is a given. A familiarization of the RSAF heli evacuation protocol should be considered for both NSF and NSmen medical officers posted to the specific area of training. NSmen medical officers could also be re-familiarized themselves with acute trauma care by given temporary registration as observers either in emergency and surgery departments during call-ups. F. Improve protocols for communications within hospitals caring for injured servicemen overseas. It may be useful to formalize arrangements between the SAF and receiving hospitals at the appropriate level in the hospital administration so that our Singaporean doctors attached to care for the injured servicemen overseas can be kept abreast of clinical developments and can contribute more effectively. And G, lastly, formalize protocols for overseas hospitals following death of SAF personnel. A reference guideline should be drawn up with details on the protocol for the management of the remains of the demised servicemen on overseas exercises. Unquote. I have concluded presenting the COI's findings, and now turn to the External Review Panel on SAF Safety Comments written report on the COI's findings. Mr. Speaker, I ask your permission to distribute that.
Yes, please.
The ERPSS agreed with the COI's findings on the incident and supports the proposed recommendations raised by the COI to prevent a similar incident from occurring. The External Review Panel also expressed concern about the safety lapses and weaknesses in safety culture that have been surfaced and made several recommendations that would help the SAF to build a stronger safety culture. First, it's important for commanders to exercise leadership in safety and impress upon their subordinates the need to properly implement safety policies and procedures build a strong safety culture, and inculcate stronger safety ownership for both team and individual levels, especially among NS-men. Second, the SAF should do more to improve knowledge retention and safety awareness in its soldiers. Third, it's vital to accord the same level of emphasis on maintenance safety as is accorded to training safety today. Last, it is crucial to strengthen safety procedures for mixed crew operations, which can be potentially risky if differences in practices across vocations are not properly addressed. Mr. Speaker, the SAF accepts both the COI and external review panel's recommendations to improve the safety culture. The SAF Inspector General's Office, set up in end February this year after this incident, will ensure that all recommendations are followed through. Specifically, the IGO has identified the need for the SAF to improve in 3 key areas: command emphasis on safety, safety as a mission outcome, and team safety culture. The SAF has to ensure that there's an internalization of safety as a mission outcome across all levels of command. All commanders must adopt a zero-accident mindset and set it in the heart of their unit safety culture. When coupled with a healthy, open reporting culture, we can prevent the next accident from happening as our units share with others lessons learned from safety incidents and near misses. Another key element of strong safety culture is team safety. Our commanders need to build a strong culture of team safety where soldiers take responsibility for their own safety, look out for their buddies, and keep each other safe during all training and mixed crew activities. These behaviors must be ingrained to every soldier, sailor, and airman so that safety rules are observed at all times. Following this incident, the SAF has also taken specific steps to strengthen personnel ownership of safety and enhance safety for maintenance-related training of task. Specifically, a Think, Check, Do drill, Think, Check, Do drill, will be implemented as a routine part of pre-maintenance task checks. As part of the drill, technicians will plan and brief all personnel of their expected roles and tasks. A dry run of team-based maintenance tasks will be conducted to ensure tight integration. The positions of e-stop buttons will be re-emphasized together with e-stop procedures and rehearsed as part of pre-op drills. B. Safe areas and hazardous areas will be further emphasized through bold markings on platforms as part of safety enhancements. C. The SAF will entrench safety ownership at the team level so that it will become ingrained for soldiers to take care of themselves, their servicemen, and their buddies. Safety advocates will be appointed in the units to emphasize safety and conduct checks. D. All soldiers will be required to take a safety awareness test annually, which commanders and trainers now take. E. NS-men will be actively involved in safety reviews when they can give feedback on safety matters before, during, and after each training activity, and this feedback will be incorporated in our training safety regulations reviews. F. Medical officers will be required to undergo refresher training on heli evacuation processes prior to the deployment for overseas medical support. New initiatives will also be explored to enhance their exposure to acute trauma care. We need a strong SAF that can defend Singapore. But it must and can be built up without compromising the safety and well-being of our national servicemen. The SAF is committed to continuing strengthening its safety systems at all levels, down to our soldiers, air crew, and sailors. I want to put on record our appreciation to the COI members who have put in much effort and time to thoroughly investigate this tragic incident. In that process, they interviewed more than 20 persons involved with the incident, reviewed voluminous documents related to the event, and manuals related to instructions and safety procedures. Mr. Speaker, let me conclude by outlining the subsequent judicial processes to be taken. Corporal Pang's death occurred in New Zealand, which therefore has state jurisdiction and not our police or state coroner. However, the New Zealand Attorney General exercised his discretion not to undertake any inquiry for Corporal Pang's case. Under our military law, it therefore falls on the SAF's Special Investigation Branch, with the jurisdiction to investigate Corporal Pang's death. The SIV has nearly completed its investigations and will report directly to the Chief Military Prosecutor, who is the senior legal officer deployed to MINDEF by the Legal Service Commission, headed by the Chief Justice. They will decide if any servicemen are to be prosecuted in a military court for offences related to Corporal Pang's death. The military court is presided over by former or serving state court judges as precedents of the General Court-Martial. The General Court-Martial will have full access to the witnesses to independently make their own findings and conclusions on the culpability of individuals who may be charged. The GCM need not take into account anything in my statement in Parliament today. In the meantime, servicemen under investigation are reassigned to administrative duties, and if found to have been culpable, will be charged and punished accordingly. Mr. Speaker, let me conclude now by expressing this House deep condolences to the late Corporal First Class NS Aloysius Pang and his families. We know that it's a difficult time for them. Corporal Pang was, by all accounts, a motivated and competent soldier. He was well liked. He was trusted by his peers. He cared deeply for his fellow soldiers. The loss of a good soldier like Corporal Pang is deeply grievous to us. There was an outpouring of grief from many Singaporeans as a result of his untimely and tragic demise. The SAF has updated Corporal Pang's family on the COI's findings and the actions taken to deal with the lapses and prevent recurrences. MINDEF and the SAF will continue to do all we can to help his family through this difficult period.